because in my mind, I'm going, okay, like babysitters, nannies, cleaners, like I need a whole team to make this this happen.
Yeah.
And you did it. Like, it's just insane.
Well, and again, it's what we talked about. Like, you have grace as you're putting one foot in front of the other. But if you could have looked ahead and been like, this is what's going to happen, and you're going to, mother 9 children for a year, I would have been like, no, I'm not. There's no way. It's amazing what we can do when we are obedient and when we do say yes that we didn't think we could do.
That's incredible. It's so true. It's just like one obedient yes, like just opens the door. You have no idea what's going to happen, what it's going to be like. And most of the time that's a good thing, because it was almost like God just knew you would say yes. And he's like, okay, Lynsey, like, this is your assignment. You don't need to know anything else other than, it's almost like he just burdens our heart for things, right? You were created to live abundantly and multiply in every area of your life. But let's be honest, the road isn't always easy.
We know that firsthand. We've been through highs and lows, from losing everything to now managing an investment fund, and we're still on the journey.
This podcast isn't about having it all figured out. It's about real stories, kingdom principles, and trusting God with what's already in your hands.
On Mandate to Multiply, we go deep into faith, family, finances, and other topics, sharing what we've learned and what we're still learning as we walk it out with Jesus.
If you're ready to think bigger, live boldly, and multiply what matters most,
then you're in the right place. We're Jonathan and Melissa Edmiston, and this is Mandate to Multiply.
Welcome to another episode of the Mandate to Multiply podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Melissa Edmiston, and I have the privilege today of interviewing another friend of mine. We're kind of on a series of interviews because I know too many amazing people that do too many amazing things to not share with our audience. And today I have one of my friends, Lynsey, and she is not only a dear friend that I met through the same mastermind that I talked to you about in previous episodes, but Lynsey's also one of our investors. Lynsey and I have spent time together at conferences and retreats and just getting to know each other. And I love her story. I love her heart. I love everything about her. And I wanted to make sure that I interviewed her today so that you all can hear about the incredible things that she does. So welcome, Lynsey. I love that you're here.
Thank you, Melissa. You are too kind with all of your kind words, but it's an honor, truly. And I'm Lynsey Cantlon. I'm a realtor in Eastern Washington State. I actually live right on the state line of Idaho. So I kind of get the fun, both worlds. Do a lot in the Coeur d'Alene, Idaho area as well. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. I'm actually an adoptive parent. 5 of my children are adopted. So we run a busy household and here for all the things.
Oh my gosh. I love that. When you shared that with me, I've gotten to talk to you a little bit about your adoption stories. And so you have a total of 7 kids. Is that correct?
6.
6. Okay. 6 kids, 5 of which are adopted.
Correct. Yes.
Wow. That's wild. Okay.
Yep.
Tell us, that adoption story. Like, we love to share on this podcast anything that has to do with family, faith, finances, and just stories of multiplication where you've taken something, a God-given assignment or something that God has done in your life, and you've shared it or you've, expanded it. And I believe that adoption is one of those things, right? Because it's so easy. I mean, adoption has like crossed my mind many times where I'm like, oh, that would be amazing. And then I get into like this, oh, but that sounds like so hard, So anytime I hear of somebody that actually hears from God to do it and does it is just a story of obedience that I think everybody needs to hear, because that is the only way that you go through with adopting, right? Is like radical obedience. So I'd love for you to share with us just like how that started. What was it that one day you just decided, I'm going to adopt, and then not only 1, but 5 amazing children? So just share a little bit about how that started and what that journey has been like for you.
Absolutely. Well, it is a crazy story because I actually never woke up and thought, oh, I want to adopt. Like, that sounds like a great idea. It was literally just the process of putting one foot in front of the other and God putting me in situations. So I was only 23 when I adopted my oldest daughter, who's now 24. I have grandbabies.
Wow.
And it was never it wasn't intentional. I was in a situation where I was asked if there was a home for this little girl, and I had a new baby myself. Charlie, my oldest biological child, was about, I want to say she was around 9 months. And I was asked, and I thought, Brooklyn, my oldest daughter, was 7 at the time, or almost turning 7. And I was like, well, I don't know of anyone, but like, I can do that. And that's really what kicked off this whole thing. So
at 23 years old, that's insane and amazing.
Yeah. Well, and it's such a blessing, sometimes we think, and we try, especially like I'm a type A personality, we try to have things all planned out, but it's actually helpful sometimes to not know everything, and you can look back and think, I'm glad I didn't know that, or I'm glad, that I was in that situation when I made that decision. But God just really, in that moment, I was just, I didn't even like make a phone call or anything. I was just like, no, I can do that. Like, if there's someone that needs a home, like by all means, I will give them a home.
Wow, that's insane. And then what's incredible too about that is, you hear a lot of adoption stories where people adopt because they weren't able to have children, and that is, an option for them, which I think is amazing. But the fact that you had a biological child already that was still a baby, and you were willing to open the door of your home to another child just because there was an ask. And sometimes that's literally what an assignment or calling is, right? It's like there's an invitation and you feel in your heart like you can't pass up that invitation. And then you just, like you said, take one step and another step. And to your point about like God not showing us the full picture, there have been many things Jonathan and I have looked at in our life where we're like, thank God that he didn't show us what that would have been like throughout the process, because we wouldn't have done it, right? It was so hard. But once you start and you give your yes and you put one foot in front of the other, you just do it. And then you look back and you're like, how? I don't even know how I did that. But God, right? Is the only way.
But God.
And so, right. So how did that one adoption turn into another 4 adoptions after that?
So through that process, so in order to get Brooklyn, we had to fast track through the foster care. She was in the foster care system. So we had to fast track through that process to be licensed. And so it was kind of just a natural next step to be like, well, we have our foster care license now. Let's just keep it. And the interesting thing was, so a lot of kids came and went. I was especially, I always asked for babies. It was fun to take babies. I love babies. Took a lot of babies, but also some sibling sets, different things, years of this, right? None of them ever stayed. And you just like your heart at one point or another, I was foster parent for 10 years. Like it just kind of becomes tired of the goodbye, and that you're changing lives and that's what keeps you going. But it's like, you're like, I don't think I can take one more kid, because sometimes you're happy. Reunification is fantastic when it's fantastic, but so many times, the situation the child's going back to, and it's way less than ideal. And your heart just wants to bleed out.
I'm sure.
So after, it was around 10 years of this. No, it wasn't 10 years. I don't know the timeline. I'm not going to try to
It's hard to remember the timeline. I get it. That happens to me all the time. I'm like, at some point.
At some point in the journey, I just decided to Google countries with the highest orphan population.
Wow.
So at the time, I want to say that was about 2013, I Googled. So that would have been actually 5 years. I guess I can't do the math. And Ethiopia popped up. Wow. And I was like, okay, they have, millions of orphans literally, and it's a tiny country. And they were one of the countries also that is open to adoption to the United States. So not every country that has a lot of orphans, you can't always adopt from that country. It depends on a lot of political red tape, basically.
Right.
But I found this little boy who is now 13 named Malachi in my family. I found him on a waiting child website, and he was 6 months old at the time and weighed around 8 pounds. So he was just obviously wasn't super healthy. He was failure to thrive. He had some other diagnoses, and I couldn't stop thinking about him. So I contacted the social worker, and she said, oh, there's another family actually that's like trying to adopt him, but by all means, like just in case something happens, we'll keep you posted. And then it was quick, like within a few days, she contacted me and said, the other family's out. Like, do you want to move forward?
Wow.
So here we began on this whole journey and finishing up.
Is that where the other, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, I was just going to say with just this whole, it's a whole different process in foster care, right? You have to get an international, a whole different home study to adopt internationally. And it's just, of course, the finances are a lot bigger because you're not only paying for all of the adoption paperwork essentially, but you're paying for travel overseas and staying overseas. And as soon as you go into the adoption process, they start charging you for the orphanage care for the child. Just some interesting things, so it was it was this whole new world that we were just kind of diving into head first.
Oh my gosh. So did the other kids that joined your family after Malachi, were they also from other countries as well?
So the following 4 adoptions, they're all Ethiopian, but they were not all from Ethiopia. So it's a whole story.
Okay. So then it was just different different ways of adding different children and to your family. And now here you are with
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so Ruby's 13 as well. She came home at the same time as Malachi. She was at a different orphanage in Ethiopia, but we were able to bring them home together. That's a huge God story. I don't have time to get into that. God actually showed me that I would be we were trying to adopt a second little boy, and God showed me that I would be adopting a little girl clearly by showing me a constellation in the sky. And so I just out of faith said, I'm sorry, we're not going to proceed with this little boy. And we got a call a week later for Ruby.
Wow. Oh, I got chills.
Yeah. And then, I have another really fun story about that. But
Yes, tell us.
Jude and Micah are through a program called Second Chance. And it's, if any of you guys follow me on social media, you'll see me promoting it sometimes. And a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, that's so horrible. You know, how could people adopt someone and give them up again? But really, the whole world of adoption is so broken. Families are not educated, especially if you're not a family of faith and you hit those hard times and you don't have the support system. You know, sometimes people physically can't go on. And so it is heartbreaking, absolutely, but it's a reality. And so I just believe we're called to step into those hard situations and
Step in. Yeah.
step in.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. Step in and just make a difference and do something that most people wouldn't do. Right. But I think that that's so powerful, Lynsey, because it's like for every difficult thing and seemingly impossible thing, there's always an anointing and a grace that God can give anybody to carry it out. Right. And that's like
So true.
the beauty of like the body, right? The church and the body of Christ, like people that are saved and are called and are following the Lord. There are some things that you can do that I don't have the grace for. And there are some things that I can do that you may not have the grace for. That's the whole point.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like
Yeah.
that is the design, is that we are all
Yes.
a different part of the body. And as long as we are all submitted and surrendered to the head, which is Jesus,
Yes.
then the different parts can all do different things. And because we can all do different things, the work is actually doable. Right?
Yeah.
It's like we all need each other. So I love that organization you mentioned, because it may not be for everybody, or they weren't able to do it for whatever reason, especially if they don't have faith, if they don't have Jesus. I say it almost every day. I don't know how people do any of this without him,
I'm with
because
you. Yep, I'm with you.
there are things that God asks us to do or that come up that seem very difficult and very challenging. And it is our faith in Jesus. It is him that in those moments is the only way that we get through it. Like he is the rock. He is our fortress. He is our hope and our help and our like everything. If we don't have him, we couldn't get through it. And I understand why some people aren't able to, right? Because they don't have him. But I love what you shared, because when you're talking, I'm like getting chills and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't even fathom going through that and doing that amount of work. But then again, I've always said, like, just don't ask me, because if somebody comes to me and asks me to take 20 babies, like I could never say no, right? Like, it's like, give me, when I think of anything bad happening to children, I always say like, bring me the babies. Like I'll save all the babies. Like I just don't want anything to happen to children, because it's like, it's not their fault. And they were just brought into this world. And unfortunately there's evil, and they are just essentially at that point, they are victims, and until they can create their own life. We know that God uses it all, and we know that he is the redeemer and the restorer of all things. But there's a journey that is very obvious. Like there's work that has to be done. There's healing that has to be done. And if not us, then who, right?
Yes, exactly. And that was my motto forever, as like, if I were in this situation, would I want someone to come for me? None of us got to pick what family we were born into, who our parents were, who our extended family was, what area of the world we were born into. And so that it's just like that constant reminder of, would I want someone to come through for me? And if not me, then who?
That's so true. That's so good. And then, okay, so now walk us into like, okay, so you have these children, you have your biological daughter, and now you're a family. Not only are you a family that is just all learning to do life together in unity, but then you're also a business owner, right? So like, what has that looked like growing a business? I always say like our children are not in the way, they are the way. Like
Yeah.
they're not the obstacle, they're the way, right? It's like, and I'm just learning and growing in that more and more, especially in this season that we brought our boys back home and we're homeschooling again. It's like, okay, like everything we do as a family. And so how has that been for you? Like tell us a little bit about like your real estate business and simultaneously raising 5 children.
Yeah.
And six, right? Sorry.
Six. Yes, six
Okay.
children. Yeah.
Raising 6 children and doing it all together. I would say there's no such thing as balance. So we know that that's a farce, but like
Yeah.
what does it actually look like to raise 5 adopted children, 6 total, and run a real estate business?
Unfortunately, not all, and of course, this is with anyone, but not all aspects of the story are glamorous or easy. Obviously, there's just so many different parts. So 6 children, 6 different biologies, none of them are biologically related to each other. And through the process, continued to be a foster parent, which is kind of crazy now that I think about it. There was a full year when we actually had 9 kids in the home.
Wow.
And not intentionally, Jude had just come home and Jude was the last one adopted in 2016, but a sibling set of 3 that we'd had previously unfortunately lost their mom like within a week of him being adopted. And they called me and just said, hey, the kids know you. They just lost their mom. Will you please take them? And there was no way I was going to say no in that moment. And looking back, even now, I'm like, I have no idea how I did that. But I wasn't in real estate yet. So
Okay.
that's probably part of it.
That's how.
Well, and the other hard part, is just learning and growing. My oldest daughter and I joke sometimes that we kind of raised each other because, she's apologized to me for how hard she was, but I've apologized to her because I'm like, I didn't even know what I was doing. And I got a 7-year-old, I'm her 5th mom. I don't know anything about attachment or, all of the trauma that she experienced. And I'm just kind of winging it, but leaning heavily on the Lord, of course. And then through that process, unfortunately, my first husband and I walked through a divorce, which was devastating. And the guilt and the shame that you put on yourself for like what you're doing to your kids, But through that process, like God redeems everything. He makes beauty from ashes. And I got my real estate license and I started the process in 2017 because I needed a way to support myself and the kids and went through the process. Started working January of 2018, ended up packing up the kids a year later and moving to the area we are now. We're in Liberty Lake, Washington, and just really started over, the fresh start. And God led us here. I mean, all of the pieces, just the way they fell together. I remember when I was calling around looking for a rental, I'm like, hi, I'm a single mom of 6 kids. We have 2 dogs. I know you want to rent to me.
Wow.
Basically, and people are like, yeah, no, we're good.
Oh
but I had this one lady and this is just the way God is just so gracious, even in our mistakes and even in, situations that are maybe not what we would have chosen. But I had this one lady, she's like, well, we have like 60 showings set up for this rental. But she's like, if by some weird chance it's still available in 3 months when you need it, because I couldn't really afford to pay the 3 months until we would get there in July.
Yeah.
She said you can have it, but I highly doubt that's never happened. She had a lot of rentals. Well, guess what? That house was still waiting for us in July. And so we came over here and I was, fresh. I mean, literally I was 4 hours from home. I was 4 hours from my mom, who had been a big support of the kid, just helping with the kids and those sort of things. And I have a brand new real estate firm in a brand new area, trying to build my business and hopefully be a good mom. And I stepped into a church here and was just immediately surrounded by incredible women that saw me and saw my situation. And yeah.
Wow.
There's so much more I could expand on there too, but I know we don't have time to talk for hours.
No, I love that. I love that. I think that's really huge because again, it goes back to, I don't know how people do hard things without Jesus and without the church and community, right? We've been talking about this a lot on almost every interview I've done. It's like, it's all gone back to needing people and not being able to do anything on our own. That's like the biggest lie is like, we got this and we can do this and I don't need anybody. And it's like, you do though, right? So you got to a new place, single mom of 6, and you like without the church and without community and without Jesus, I think it would have been impossible, right?
100% impossible.
And the fact, and you had a community that like I'm sure were the hands and feet of Jesus for you in that season.
Yes.
Because I can't, I can only imagine the like the need. I mean, I was hearing you talk, and I want to ask you, like, Lynsey, did you have any help? Like, you're one person, even when it was, you and your ex-husband, you were still just two people completely outnumbered.
Yeah.
And so you said you had your mom, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in my mind, I'm going, okay, like babysitters, nannies, cleaners, like I need a whole team to make this this happen.
Yeah.
And you did it. Like, it's just insane.
Well, and again, it's what we talked about. Like, you have grace as you're putting one foot in front of the other. But if you could have looked ahead and been like, this is what's going to happen, and you're going to, mother 9 children for a year, I would have been like, no, I'm not. There's no way. It's amazing what we can do when we are obedient and when we do say yes that we didn't think we could do.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. It's so true. It's just like one obedient yes,
Mhm.
like just opens the door. You have no idea what's going to happen, what it's going to be like. And most of the time that's a good thing, because it was almost like God just knew you would say yes. And he's like, okay, Lynsey, like, this is your assignment. You don't need to know anything else other than, it's almost like he just burdens our heart for things, right? It's like, there's things that Jonathan and I have said yes to that are crazy. And like most people think we're crazy as it is for the things that we've done and the
I'm with you. Yes.
moves that we've made. Like we don't really know anything else other than people being like, what are you going to do? Like, that's crazy. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's normal. We're used to hearing that. But then it's like when you are given the opportunity or that thing is put in front of you, God does something to your heart, to your mind. It's like, and you're just like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. That sounds and seems like a great idea. Like that's only God that can give you that grace to, like we were saying before, to take something on like that most people wouldn't say yes to or wouldn't do because they start thinking of how difficult it will be. Right.
Yeah. Well, and he's so good. He expands and multiplies our capacity too in those seasons. Like supernaturally is the only way you're going to get through something like that. At least get through it well.
Totally. That's really, really good. There are seasons I have literally felt God. I mean, I feel him doing it right now where he's just expanding my capacity to do difficult things, challenging things, a lot of things. And so I can only imagine that when you're doing difficult, challenging things that have to do with the lives of other human beings that you're going to be stewarding, right? The only way that it happens is by his grace and by his increase and expansion of capacity in a way that only he can do, right?
Yeah.
I look back to my season of 3 littles, and I remember, changing a diaper, wiping a butt, and nursing like all at the same time. That doesn't even sound humanly possible, but somehow that is a true story.
Yep.
Like, I don't know how it's possible, but I can picture it in my head very vividly. And it was, it was in fact supernatural and only by his grace and an increase in capacity. So I think that's wild. Okay. So fast forward us. Now you're a realtor in Idaho, Washington, because you just said you're on the kind of on the border, right?
Yeah. Basically right on the state line.
Which is so cool because they're 2 beautiful places.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the best up here.
I know. I've seen pictures. I've never been, but I've seen pictures and
soon.
it looks like
you're coming soon,
stunning.
Right?
Yes, we are going to visit you for sure. So you have now your realtor business is growing. You have a church community that's rallying behind you and supporting you. And there's another part of the redemption story because you don't stay a single mom.
Right.
Your hubby is just an incredible human being I've had the privilege of meeting and talking to and spending time with. And I mean, wow, talk about God, like sending you a gift.
Yeah.
To say like, Lynsey, you don't have to do this alone. I'm going to send you somebody because, and I've talked to you about this before, like how many men are willing to take on 6 children that are not his own, right? Like it's just mind blowing. And only God can do something like that. So kind of give us a little glimpse into that part, like fast forward a little bit and you meet Eric and everything changes.
Yeah. Again, not planned. I had this whole thing of like, okay, I'm going to do this on my own. I don't want to be involved with anyone. I don't need any more. I just was very hardened and closed off. And knowing I had a complex family, I just had very much like, I can do this myself mentality. So meeting Eric through real estate, he was a home inspector on a house I was selling. When I first met him, I could tell like we just had some great conversations. Certain realtors require you to sit there through the home inspection. So we had like a lot of time to talk, but I was like, it was very surface level to me as far as like, this guy's really nice.
You're like, I'm not going there. Okay.
I'm not going there. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
So obviously that changed. We married in 2021, and he is truly like, I'm going to try to say this without crying, but, and we've had to learn and grow together, of course. And he took on a huge, and I don't give him enough credit, honestly, for taking on my circus, as I call it sometimes, because it's a fun circus,
Yeah,
but it is
for
a circus because we're always going in a million directions, busy career, kids, sports, all the church activities, all the things. And his baby at the time was just getting ready to leave the nest. So it was like he was just wrapping this up. And I was like, hey, do you want to start this all over with, you can coach, you can do all these things. But wow, what a godsend. I mean, he has been faithfully by my side, always has my back. He's my biggest supporter, my biggest cheerleader. He does all of our cooking. He loves to cook. I didn't even think of that as like something that guys did. Eric loves to cook. I don't even remember the last time I made dinner. If he's not going to be home to cook, I'm like, honey, what did you have in mind for dinner? Can you give me some? It's funny how you just, that's hasn't had to be my role, but it's been such a blessing. And the way he stepped up to the plate for the kids and just being there for them, every sporting activity, he's there. And of course it's not perfect. Like, we are a blended family. I'm not trying to portray that at all, but I never could have picked this for myself and been this happy and this taken care of. So it's just, again, like such a picture of God's grace and his goodness, even when we screw up, even when, we take steps that we shouldn't or end up in a place we never thought we'd be, the way he comes through for us. And
wow. I just think this is such a powerful story, Lynsey. And I just want to speak to anybody that's watching or listening that maybe finds themselves, because you said it, right? When you got divorced, you walked through some guilt and shame. And that is very, very real, right? I think this is really powerful and really important because you mentioned and alluded to the fact that there was some shame and some guilt from walking through a divorce. Now you're getting divorced and you have multiple children, right, to care for.
Yeah.
And so I feel like anybody that's listening to this or watching and saying, I'm in a similar situation where divorce is not what I wanted, and here I am. And you almost kind of feel like there's no coming back from this, or you kind of get in this hole of shame and guilt, right? And I think this is such a powerful story because it shows, I always say, we're never too far gone. We're never too lost, or there's nothing that God cannot redeem, and there's nothing that he cannot restore, and there's nothing that he can't not just redeem and restore, but make even better than you could have ever imagined. And I think your story is such a testament to that, because not only were you a single mom of 6 in a new place, I'm assuming you didn't have very much money. Single mom, new town, no money. And now here you are, fast forward, you are a very successful realtor. You are married to an amazing man who took on 6 children, and you're part of a church who has supported you and rallied behind you. I mean, if that is not a story of hope and of redemption for people listening, it's don't lose hope. Just stay the course, keep going. I think the most important thing is that we don't get stuck in that shame and guilt cycle, and that we lean on the Lord, we give our lives to him, we trust him, and we just keep going one step at a time, doing the right thing. It's look how you met Eric. You didn't even know that you were going to meet him. You didn't even look for him, right? It's you met him on a job. So I think this is such a powerful, powerful story. And I'm so glad that it was shared on this podcast, because I think there's a lot of women out there, even men, that need to hear that there's always hope. There's always more. There's always redemption and restoration. And I'm just really glad that you were able to share that, because I think that's so important. Is there anything else you wanted to share about that piece? And then we'll close it out with one more question.
I think there's so many things I could share about that, but I really just wrestled with I was raised in a way that if I were to get remarried, my salvation would be at risk. That's something that was taught to me growing up. And so I really wrestled with the whole concept of could God still love me? Could he still accept me? Would I still have my salvation through this whole process? And he has just been so good to show himself to me time and time again. It was in this hard season. And how do we get oil on our lives? It's by being crushed. And, it was in that season of crushing that I learned to fast, that I learned to actually be a prayer warrior. And did I do it perfectly? No, but it was I was so desperate for guidance and making sure that I was going to be okay with the decision I was making to move into a new relationship, that it was just Now looking back on it and seeing God's hand in all of it, but at the time it was literally like, okay, God, I'm taking this step. Like, please just close this door if this is not from you. And sometimes, we sit there waiting for an answer. We don't always get our answer right away, but God rewards action. And so if we feel like we're being led in a direction, taking that step, making that choice, and just saying, God, please, if this is not from you, and saying it honestly, not like, oh, I already know what you said, but I'm going to kind of go this direction and try to, shirk around your plan. But like, honestly, God, like, this is where I believe you're leading me. I'm going to take this step forward. And I just want to encourage anyone that is feeling stuck or hopeless, whether it's in, being in a single season or with a lot of kids or an adoptive mom. You guys, adoptive moms need so much support. If you know an adoptive mom or if you are one and you're listening to this, please, you can, of course, reach out to me, but rally around your adoptive moms. Like, there is just, I promise you, they need support in some way. Whether it's a meal dropped off, whether it's someone they can vent to, whether it's just to feel loved and seen, or an hour by themselves. There's so many ways. So sorry, that was kind of all over the board. But
no, I think that's huge. We've been talking so much about oil and crushing, and the seasons that feel the most difficult and the most challenging are always an invitation to increase your intimacy with Jesus.
Yes.
No doubt, right? Like you go through something hard, and it's always an opportunity for greater surrender. It's always an opportunity to be at his feet, to be on your face, to cry out to him and say everything and anything that's on your heart, and learn to, like you said, pray and fast and war and take authority for the things on your heart and the things that God has for your life.
Yeah.
But if we don't lean in and we don't cry out to him and we don't give that opportunity for increased intimacy, then we just stay in that shame. We stay stuck. And that's not where Jesus wants us, because that's not what he died for. He died so we could have life abundantly, right? To live fully alive. And so the only way to do that, like you said, is like something difficult comes up. And I've had this many times, in different seasons happen. I just had it recently where I was like, just not okay about something. And instead of staying not okay, I just like got before the Lord and I gave him more of my heart than I ever knew was possible to give to anybody. Right. And sure enough, freedom came from that, right? Growth came from that. Increased intimacy came from that. Knowing my identity and knowing that I'm loved and knowing that he's got me. Right. And so I think that's a really good reminder, is like to lean in those seasons. And I think that will speak to and bless anybody that's listening, which I love. So I'm so grateful for you, Lynsey. The last question that I just wanted to ask you, because I know we mentioned that you are one of our investors, and I love talking about multiplication in every area: our family, our faith, and our finances. I think we've really touched heavily on family and faith. And then I just wanted to ask you, like, what is it about investing with us that you were drawn to, and how has that aligned with like your multiplication mandate and passion and calling that we all have, really? And then just share anything that's on your heart about that, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay. Well, I love that, because again, when I met you, I wasn't looking for like a place to invest, or I wasn't even looking, right? It's just these situations present themselves. I think multiplication is something that's not talked about enough. I wasn't raised, learning that we're called actually to multiply in really every area of our lives. And I think that, in the parable of the talents, which I'm sure has been brought up many times, but Jesus says that multiplication equals faithfulness. The servants that multiplied were called faithful. Well, we all want to be called faithful. We all want to hear the words good and faithful servant at the end of our life. And so it's something that it was interesting, because God had brought it into my, it was just something that kept popping up, but I was I had never really taken it seriously, as far as, I was doing the next thing, but I'd never really thought about the fact that I was multiplying my time or my gifts or, my family, our resources, like we're called to. And so it was just when I met you, and you and Jonathan are such authentic, just salt of the earth, real deal people. And you can't fake that. We live in a world of fake. And, it's like when you meet somebody and they're authentic, and you just know in your being that they're authentic. So that was the first, I was immediately drawn to you. Of course, you guys are in real estate as well. But it's funny because God had already been stirring. It's not funny. I mean, it's not a coincidence, right? But he'd already been stirring in my heart about multiplication and what that actually means. And, leaving legacy for my children. I have a big family and I don't want to be stuck. It's easy with a large family, with as expensive as life is, to kind of get stuck in like a scarcity mindset, because you're like, okay, 6 kids, there's college, there's, cars for driving, there's all of the things. And it's really easy to kind of just be like, we'll worry about that later. But it's funny because I was reading in Ecclesiastes. I felt like the Lord led me there before this call. And it's all the Ecclesiastes 3 talks about there's a, time to be born, a time to die. All of those, like, we're all familiar with that scripture. There's nothing in there that says like there's a time to multiply and there's a time to sit back and relax. And I just thought, it doesn't matter like what season we're in, we are called to multiply. And so when you told me about your fund, and it's just like, I just knew, like, and I think that anybody listening to this podcast for the first time that understands what you do and is in a position where they are looking for like a kingdom driven investment, I feel like they're just going to know, because, when you really want to support people, that are walking with the Lord, that are walking out their own call to multiply, and then just getting connected with people that are so genuine and real. And
wow.
that's in a nutshell.
I love that, because what's funny is that when we had been building a relationship and getting to know each other before Jonathan and I even had a fund, right? Before we launched the fund. And as we started the process and told you about it, maybe you just heard it in conversation, or I kind of said it in front of a group. And then then you're like, I want to invest with you. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I haven't started it yet, but like, we're going to do it. And like, I'm ready. This is what I have. And it was so wild, because things like that, like you said, only the Lord can orchestrate. Before we launched it, he's like, Jonathan and I both really felt like the Lord was telling us very clearly, there are people that know how to make an income, but they don't necessarily know how to multiply it. And so now that I've taught you, I want you to do it for other people. And you're going to basically take a pool of money and you're going to make it grow, and you're going to give them the returns and the reward. And to me, I was like, that sounds amazing. I want to make money for other people more than I want to make it for myself. It's just really fun. Yeah. But also I was like, and that sounds really big and scary. So no, thank you. Yeah. It's kind of like a little wrestle for a minute. And then ultimately, of course, we said yes, because that's just what we do. But yeah, it was really great to have been building a relationship with you. You knew we were trustworthy. And then God, we told you about what we were doing, and you're like, yes, count me in. So you've been one of our investors from day one. Yeah. And we're just so grateful for the trust and just being there from the beginning and trusting us, and being able to like have you in my life regardless is just such a gift. So it's all a win, and I'm really, really grateful. So thank you. Yes,
likewise. I would say the same right back at you. Just the people you meet sometimes and get the privilege, truly a privilege of knowing and learning about. It's like you can't dream these people up, and you guys are just the best of the best. So thank you.
Thank you. We feel the same exact way about you and Eric. So thank you.
Yes.
All right, my friend, this has been so fun.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for saying yes and for coming on. And thank you to everyone who is listening and watching. Make sure that you follow Lynsey. If you're anywhere in the Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Washington area, make sure you connect with her for any real estate need. And just because she's amazing and her content is so fun to watch and see. So she does some great stuff in real estate. She also has a necklace line coming out that we're going to link in the show notes, just like faith inspired necklaces, a lion, which is the one I want to get my hands on, because the lion is our Talos Investment Fund logo, and she has 2 fish. So those are coming out soon. That'll be in the show notes. How to contact her will be in the show notes. And if you're a mom or family listening, as far as adoption goes, and you just are like, okay, I love everything she has to say, reach out to her. And I'm sure she can give you any sort of just wisdom, support, encouragement, and point you in the right direction for anything that you need. So thank you, Lynsey. You're such a gift. I love you so much. And for those listening, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with someone who it will inspire.
Love you too, friend.
See you guys next time.
Before you go, remember, God can use anything. Even the hardest parts of your story can become seeds for multiplication.
If this episode encouraged you, share it with a friend, leave a review, or subscribe so you never miss a moment of hope and truth.
You can also follow us on Mandate to Multiply on Instagram or mandatetomultiply.com to keep growing with us.
Until next time, trust God, steward well what's in your hand,
and live a life fully multiplied.